Just a few house rules. Please remain unmuted at all times. Keep your videos off at all times. Questions and answer sessions will follow after the presentation. We'd like to ask everybody to really engage with the topic. Place your questions in the box or unmute yourself and pose your question. We do have French interpretation available. If you just press the little world button at the bottom of your screen, you will have access to French interpretation. After the meeting, we'll be able to share some slides, the video, and also some other context relevant to this topic. Just a short recap on some of the BBL events that were done before this. Essentially, the very same events that spoke to communications and knowledge management. The first one that we had was around communicating on evaluations to increase demand, lessons from IDEV. We had a speaker from IDEV who obviously looked at how knowledge management communications are used to ensure evaluations knowledge, findings, and lessons are available, valued, utilized, and contribute to improving development effectiveness. And we also had one on embedding knowledge management and communications to M&D process, stakeholder mapping. And in that particular BBL event, we looked at how understanding a stakeholder relationship with evaluations allows for more useful evaluations and better dissemination and uptake. And today, we will be looking at developing a dissemination plan. Our speaker for today is Jacqueline Nyagahima, and she is a Principal Knowledge Management Officer in the Independent Evaluations Office in IDEV, or also known as IDEV, or in the African Development Bank. In this role, she supports the preparation, disseminations of evaluations, knowledge, products, and stakeholder engagement. Prior to working at the African Development Bank, Jacqueline served as the head of informations and communications at the Associations for Strengthening Agricultural Research in Eastern and Central Africa for 6 years. In this place, she guided the adoption and implementation of members' national agricultural research systems, guidelines, and enhanced their communications. Ms. Nyagahima holds a Master's of Business Administration from Harold Watt University in the United Kingdom, and a Master's of Science in Mathematics, Bachelor of Sciences with Educations from Makerere University. Welcome, Jacqueline, and thank you for accepting again our invitation to just guide us into this very important topic. I will now hand over to you for your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Parfait. Thank you so much for the introduction, and I'm really glad to be here to share IDEV's experience on communication and dissemination planning. We've just added a bit to the title, communication, to it, because it's all the same thing here. So just asking, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we are.
Okay, great. So this is an outline of my presentation. I'll be speaking as Parfait mentioned. Colleagues of mine have presented before, and so I'll probably borrow a slide or two so that you realize how everything we do is an integral part of each other. And if you don't mind, I will switch off my video so that it doesn't interfere with the streaming. So this is the outline of my presentation. I'll be speaking about the role of IDEV at the African Development Bank. This I'm borrowing from a presentation that was made by Jane. We still have to introduce IDEV to you. And then speak about the communication and dissemination need here, why we have to have a communication and dissemination plan. And then I'll introduce you to the planning stages. You just mentioned the planning stages of communication and dissemination here. And then finally, steps in developing communication and dissemination plan. Now, about IDEV at the African Development Bank, as many of you are aware, the bank's assistance to African countries involves providing funds to these countries to invest in development projects. And these are normally like maybe setting up of infrastructure, roads, power generation, and so on. You won't see the bank investing in a brewery, for example. But as well as funds, we also provide policy advice, as well as knowledge and technical assistance, again, to support development efforts in these countries. And in all that it does, its main goal is to reduce poverty in Africa. And so it has to remain relevant. And so in order to remain relevant, it has to continually assess the development effectiveness of its projects or its interventions, check out how well are we doing, are we delivering the results that we're supposed to, or what are the problems that we are having, learn from this, and then improve its support to the African countries. And this is where IDEV comes in. IDEV's main role, somehow my screen is freezing. All right. IDEV's main role is to enhance the development effectiveness of the bank through 4 major functions. The first is to conduct independent evaluations of the bank's policies, strategies, programs, processes, systems, and so on. Any aspect that affects the development effectiveness of the bank, it's expected to help improve the bank's self-evaluation systems, processes, and products. And these are things like these are like products that the implementing departments do produce as they assess their own work. And these are like their implementation progress reports, their midterm reviews, their project completion reports, and so on. So IDEV comes in to validate and make sure that they are doing what they're supposed to do. It's also supposed to facilitate feedback of the findings and lessons and recommendations from its evaluations to all the stakeholders that need to take action, whether it's within the bank or within the regional member countries in which the bank works in, and also to assist in strengthening member countries' monitoring and evaluation capacity and systems. So in all that it does, IDEV's activities are designed to meet 3 key objectives. The first is to provide a basis for accountability to the stakeholders of the bank by evaluating and documenting the impact of the bank's activities. The next is to enhance learning, that is, learning especially within the bank and the partners in order to improve its work, its policies, its programs, whatever projects that it is implementing. And thirdly, to promote an evaluation culture, both within the bank and within the regional member countries, so as to encourage a process of continuous learning, assessment, and learning, and continuous improvement. And so you can see that from all this that the IDEV is supposed to do, there is a very big need for communication and dissemination, because IDEV has to communicate evaluation findings to the bank stakeholders, to inform them of the bank's performance, to encourage uptake of lessons into the bank's operations, and to enhance the development effectiveness of the bank's operations, to ensure that these operations are delivering the results that they set out to do. There's also the need to share lessons with our evaluation partners so that they can also improve their own operations. And also, we need to share knowledge and educate the public about evaluation work, because even as we are building the capacity of our RMCs in getting this evaluation culture, the more knowledge that we can share, the better, and as part of the capacity development. And finally, we do need to communicate so as to demonstrate accountability to the bank. And we need a systematic way of doing this. And this is where we come to a communication and dissemination plan. So I will take you through the steps by the way of preparing a communication and dissemination plan. So I hope that you have a piece of paper nearby or your computer open somewhere where by the time we are done, at least you'll have some outline of a communication and dissemination plan for any intervention that or project that you are working on. So first of all, why do we have to have a communication plan? We need a systematic way. In planning for communication and dissemination, IDEF sets out a strategy to maximize the development, the impact of its evaluations. Remember what it's supposed to do to influence decisions, for example, that the evaluations should be able to influence actions that improve the impact of the bank's interventions. These evaluations are supposed to help bring about change by targeting those who influence decisions, policies, and actions with evidence-based knowledge. So we bring to them, we give them evidence-based knowledge so they can make decisions on whatever actions that they are carrying out. And then we also need to want to contribute to the body of knowledge on development issues that we have evaluated. By the way, evaluation has been around at the bank for over 40 years now. And so IDEF has a wealth of knowledge from evaluating the bank's development interventions during that period. So we really have a lot of knowledge that we are ready to disseminate and that people can benefit from, so that they don't have to reinvent the wheel every time they're starting a new intervention. And then also we need to be strategic in order to enhance IDEF's credibility and visibility for qualitative evaluation knowledge and solutions for Africa's development challenges. So you can see we really need a strategy to make sure that our evaluations are impactful at that level. At a more practical level, for each evaluation, we have to have a communication and dissemination plan to help us ensure that communication of evaluation knowledge takes place from the start of an evaluation to its completion. So all through the time that the evaluation is being conducted, communication should be taking place, or sharing of the knowledge that is coming out. We need to be able to ensure that the communication plan helps us to ensure that the knowledge that is shared, that we share, has suitable content for the right audience, and that it is delivered at the right time using the most appropriate communication products and channels. And it also helps us to plan and budget for the resources required. As those who have tried to prepare dissemination materials, you do know that, or any communication products, you do know that it's quite resource intensive. And so it's good to be able to upfront budget for whatever you can, and then go ahead with the activities that you can fund. Now, planning for this communication and dissemination here at IDEF takes place at 3 levels. When an evaluation is launched, a high-level communication and dissemination matrix is prepared for it. At that point, it's at the conceptualization of the evaluation. So this is something that Dieter, my colleague, already talked you through in terms of stakeholder mapping, because we already have stakeholders that are identified for whichever evaluation that is being launched. And then during the time that an evaluation is ongoing, we then prepare what we call a preliminary communication and dissemination plan. And then when the evaluation is completed, we finalize the dissemination plan. Now, why is this? Because when the evaluation is ongoing, there's information that it's generating, new issues that are coming up. And therefore, even based on the kind of knowledge that they generate or the evidence that they collect, you find that maybe by the time that we complete the evaluation, there are very probably other stakeholders that we had not identified initially who now become important for the evaluation to be able to be impactful. And so at the end of the evaluation, we are able to also see what are the key messages that should be getting out and who the main target audiences are now. So what I will do now is take you through the steps quite fast. And I think at this point, this is why I ask you to please, this one is going to be participatory. And I hope that each of you will be able to kind of see where we can go with this. So these are the steps that we do in preparing the communication and dissemination plan. We start by answering these key questions, which I will explain later in detail. First, what are the evaluation's key communication objectives? Who are the target audiences for the stakeholders for this evaluation? What are the key messages that we want to communicate? And what mix of communication products and channels should we use? What about the budget? And then how do we measure the use of this evaluation knowledge that we have produced? So the first question, what are the evaluation's key communication objectives? The questions we're supposed to be answering: why do we wish to communicate about the evaluation? Let's say you're evaluating a water project in a rural area in your country, or maybe it's a health project. Why do you wish to communicate about this evaluation? What do you wish to communicate from this evaluation? What do you hope to achieve? And what do you want the people to do as a result of receiving these communications? Remember that if there are two ways. Initially, I recall in the past when evaluations used to take place, people who were in monitoring and evaluation would go do their monitoring evaluation, prepare a report, share it with their manager, that's it, and that's where it ends. Sometimes the recommendations that come up are not used, or they're no lesson, even the lessons that come up are never used, because the report now will sit on somebody's computer, or to be on a shelf somewhere. But if you want to be able to make sure that the results of your evaluation are used to effect change, then you have to really be specific about what it is the objective of that particular evaluation that you're carrying out. So for example, some of the examples I would give are, maybe you want to influence a strategy or a process within your organization. So you want to influence the development of maybe the energy strategy or the water strategy, or the implementation of a certain project by whichever department, or maybe by the ministry. So this is what you want your evaluation to do. This is the kind of impact that you want your evaluation to have. Maybe the intention is you wish to communicate so as to engage policymakers to do something. You want to enhance learning from this evaluation to a particular set of work or work process or processes or systems within your organization. Raise awareness, and also encourage the use of certain best practices. So these could be some of the objectives. So remember that project at the start, I said, we want to see if you can go with an outline of a communication and dissemination plan for a project that you're working on. So maybe just to see, looking at the projects that you work on, can some of you start maybe entering what would be key communication objectives for that evaluation? If you're evaluating a project, let's say a water project or a health project, what would you see based on the examples? Please type them into the chat box. Then I'll know that I'm being effective. Any volunteers? Okay. Maybe I should stop. Parfait, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay.
I think there was a comment.
There's a comment, raise awareness of critical issues. I think this one I have given, but critical issues about what? Now we want you to be very specific to your project or the whatever you're evaluating. Okay, to improve impact outcomes, to increase the budget. Okay, at least, all right. So you want to take action, okay, to improve processes, good. You have a reason why you want to do this, great. And maybe at some point you would need to say maybe by who, like to improve impact by who? Is it the ministry? Is it the permanent secretary? Is it the university? So you at that point are trying to see who's supposed to, what they're supposed to do, who they are, and what changes they're supposed to effect. Thank you. At least I can see that that one's working. So you have now got that written down for your project or your monitoring and evaluation for the M&E report that you're working on. The next question that we answer is, who are the stakeholders for this evaluation results? Now, in the bank, for our evaluations, normally, of course, the key stakeholders are the board of directors and management, and then what we call the user departments and units. And then we also have the, if it's a corporate evaluation, if it's a sector evaluation or any other project evaluation, the bigger percentage then comes from audiences. We will really want to have audiences from the regional member countries that are probably who have received the support from the bank, beneficiaries of the interventions of the bank, and development partners, evaluators, and the academia. And I know that Dita presented on this, so at least I think among you, you do know who the stakeholders are. These are people who have key interactions with the results of the evaluation that you are performing. So for those of you who have got a project or a report that you're working on, can you write down the stakeholders in your view, those who have to receive the report, those who have to make decisions based on your report, those who probably could learn some of the lessons that are coming out of your report. They could also be other implementers. They could be other partners that are implementing similar projects. So sorry, I went back into my notes. Sorry. So I wanted to look at again at the chat. Who would be the stakeholders for your report, the evaluation report or the M&E report that you're preparing? We have project managers. Oh, great. We have cabinet, national ministers, all commanders, district. Oh, these are many. You really have a very big one. Development partners. Great. So at least you already now know, first of all, you've listed the communication objective for your M&E report, and now you have got your stakeholders. So what are the key messages that you want to get, from for the target audiences. From your M&E report or from the evaluation, what are the key messages to be communicated? Now, for us, normally our evaluations follow a standard. If you have an evaluation, it will present findings, conclusions, lessons, recommendations. Those are like the standard, what I would say, areas or information or knowledge that is generated from our evaluations. So they'll go out and do an evaluation, there will be findings, then some of them will come up with conclusions and lessons, and many of them come up with recommendations for the bank or for the user department or whichever department is responsible for whatever issue that is or intervention that is being evaluated. So again, if you have your M&E report, definitely there are certain areas that you're looking at and things that you, and the lessons or conclusions that you draw and recommendations that you make. And so there are core issues that you find in an evaluation. You know, I mean, you have your report, but there are some issues which are really key that need to be communicated, so a change for the better may be made, or something that is not working right should be probably changed, improved, or stopped. The other issues, other things that we have is that when we have an evaluation, we have deliverables that an evaluation will present in the course of the evaluation. Some will have come up with baseline studies or case studies, synthesis reports, and all these feed into the final output or deliverable, which is the evaluation summary report. There are also inception reports and so on. So you find that even these deliverables are important to some other either departments within the bank or stakeholders. So for example, you're doing an energy sector evaluation. There could be some analyses that are done, and maybe the department for energy already wants it even before the evaluation report is out, or there are technical reports that we generate that all feed into the summary report. So these deliverables, case studies, we are doing an energy sector evaluation that's covering maybe 5 countries, and each country wants the case study for that particular country, and our partners there want to use it. So these are the kind of products that many of our evaluations will generate in the course of preparing the final summary report. So apart from that, we also have to ask the question, what are the knowledge needs of the key stakeholders? Remember the target audience that we had identified? And normally the key messages are the knowledge needs are derived from the key messages and the deliverables of the evaluation. And of course, as you're doing your M&E, you're interviewing people, you're meeting so many your organizations or beneficiaries, and there are questions that they're asking, which your evaluation is looking at, and which probably they would really want to hear after your evaluation is over. So and also you're able to tell based again on what you want to report to, what impact you want your report to have, who are the key audiences, because we normally have a list of the audiences or the stakeholders, but you find because for this evaluation to be effective, probably even if you had a list that included the permanent secretary, maybe the various divisions or departments within your ministry, you may find that the issues that are coming up are only relevant maybe for the water department. And so you only focus on the people in the water department. Or you may find that the issues that are coming out are relevant for maybe the water department and people on the ground, like maybe the county or district leaders. And so you find that those are the key, what I would say, the key audiences that you have, and you need to have very specific messages for them. So from your, I'm sorry, my screen is hanging. I think when I talk too much, it just hangs. All right, great. All right, so once you have decided on what the key messages are, I hope that you are writing down for your projects what you think, what are coming up, because these are reports that you're doing, and so you probably have key issues that are coming up. So the next question is, what mix or which mix of communication products and channels will be used to reach the target audiences. So which are the most appropriate communication products, channels, pathways, media to reach the target audiences? You have to consider some of the issues, for example, where the communication product is to be used. If, for example, the person that you're giving it to is attending a workshop, you may say, okay, I may take them a publication. But if they're in a field somewhere, or you're meeting them somewhere else, maybe you may take a fact sheet or a brief. I mean, like you prepare something like that. You have to ask yourself where the stakeholders are. They may be in a place where maybe you probably wouldn't be able to put that information on your website or send it via WhatsApp. Or maybe these days you have WhatsApp, but maybe you may want to deliver a physical copy to them, where they will access and receive the communication product from. And all these decisions help you make decisions of the most efficient and most cost-effective medium to use. That is the communication product and channel mix. So right now, there's a plethora of communication products and channels. I mean, if you, especially now with the internet and the social media and so on, again, sorry, my screen is hanging, so great. So these are some of the communication products. There's a whole list of them. I won't go through them, but just to let you know that you can have a whole set of, from publications, video and audio, and even data. So those are some of the communication products that you may decide to prepare. Again, they are based on the message that you want to deliver. Some of them are better presented in a brochure. Some of them are better presented in a book. So again, and the target audience that you're trying to reach. Oh, sorry, once again, my screen is hanging. And then for the means, we have, again, various examples from meetings, physical ones to electronic. Now we are very lucky that the internet has actually gone quite far, even within Africa, something that we couldn't speak of 10 years ago. So it's a very good channel for communication now. Databases, you still have print media, education and training, press conferences, newsletters, and so on. There are also periodic meetings that you have. I'm sure in your organizations, maybe you have like yearly planning meetings or events. You could also have a channel through an intermediary organization. So for example, especially like if you're those who work like in NGOs and so on, if you want to influence the like members of parliament or things like that. So you may want to influence something, but you cannot access the stakeholder you want to access. And so you have to go through another organization to do it for you, another organization that is able to reach your stakeholders. So I just wanted to give an example of, for an evaluation that we have, some of the mix that we are using for it. So from one evaluation, this is what we're doing. We're preparing a brief for we are preparing for wider dissemination, a published summary report, an executive summary, and a brief. We're going to collaborate with a certain department to present the evaluation at some upcoming consultations, events. So if you see what I'm bolding in each sentence, it's the product and then the means. We're going to prepare a high-level lesson note for senior management from this evaluation, so we know how to reach them. And then we're also preparing a post-evaluation news article that will run on the IDEV and bank websites. And then we'll prepare an animation about it to be displayed at high-level meetings and on the website. So these are some of the active mixes that we're going to do for this evaluation. Now, depending, of course, at the end of the day, you're limited by the budget, but you could do only one, you could do two, but it's just seeing that we have the different products that we hope to reach specific target audiences that are important for this evaluation to be impactful. So in your project outline that you are preparing, I'm sure you can now already think of, like, if for the results of your evaluation report, what kind of products and channels that you may want to use. And it'll be nice to see what you're thinking of. In terms of your mix, what kind of activities would you think of? Just very quickly, maybe a brief that you're going to share in the ministry, maybe I mean, please share on the chat. And someone said a policy brief. Whom will you share? How will you share it? Or how will you make sure, what channel are you going to use to disseminate it? We have a brief to be shared at an expo. And to whom? Yes, thanks. Jane has added. To whom? We're waiting. So the policy brief that will be shared at, okay, website, targeted webinars to the relevant stakeholders in the industry sector, okay. So, okay, for government officials, I think that's the policy brief for government officials. Okay, I can see that some of you already have your plan coming up, a news article for your newsletter, which is internal and external. Great. And remember, you have a key message for them that you have identified, right? Great. So once you have all this, now the next question we ask is the budget. Now you have decided on all these things that we have to do. And remember, like I said at the beginning, when it comes to communication and dissemination, it's resource intensive, as in you have to have the right skills that can work on these things. And also sometimes it's quite, some of the, like to make a user-friendly brief, you would probably require certain services that probably you don't have within your organization, and therefore you have to pay for. So quickly look at the budget. Sorry, my screen keeps hanging up for some reason. Right, so what is the budget? Because you may require certain expertise and services. And just like to just say for example, if you're looking at reproduction, that is the refinement and processing of content. For example, content capture. Sometimes you might have to hire a videographer to go out and capture, or a photographer to go and take photos. You may need professional services for editing, rewriting, translation, graphic design, and so on. If you're thinking of publishing, mass production, like you want to print your materials, you print your publications, or put your things, your information on a memory stick and so on, that's also costly. The good thing now with the internet, it has cut out a lot of these costs, especially with regards to printing and memory sticks and all. If you have your website, some others use their social media platforms, people are now able to share some of this information they probably originally would have had to print out. And then the dissemination channels, you may want to present these at some conferences, or you maybe want to prepare a newspaper supplement if you're targeting probably like the policymakers and you have no access for them. You may want to put some articles in the papers, then there's transportation and so on. All these have costs. And so for all the activities that you prepare, it is important that you're able to cost them. And these are some of the cost elements of the activities that you are going to carry out. Right, so once we've done that, we ask ourselves, how are we going to measure the use of this evaluation knowledge? So how do we measure the usage of these products that we are preparing? How will we know that we are being successful with our dissemination activities? Are these products reaching the intended audiences? And is there evidence on how many people it reaches? So some of the measures that we use are quantitative, where we look at email and website analytics, Google Analytics, social media impact. And on the one side, you can see some of the measures for that are captured. This is again borrowed from a previous presentation by Jane, but just to remind you that this is how we actually measure how our information is being used, where it's being reached. And then we have qualitative, where we carry out surveys, periodic surveys, client satisfaction surveys. And we also have, whenever we carry out an event, have a survey afterwards, and also after action reviews to see what kind of impact our evaluations are doing. And we also measure evaluation use through references, because like we say, a lot of our evaluations inform the preparation of certain strategies or policies and so on. And so you find that many times when at the introduction of these strategies, they will say this strategy was informed by an idea of evaluation and so on. So again, how often we're referred to in all these processes and systems that are coming up within the bank is also a measure that the knowledge that we're producing is being used. So all this that I have given you is captured in a kind of document. I've shared this document with Parfait, and he'll be able to share it with you too, because now you actually have an outline of communication and dissemination plan. Okay, so we spoke for the introduction, you will speak about your evaluation. That is basically that evaluation that you're carrying out. But the other questions are answered here. This is what we place in that plan. The objective. What is the purpose of your communication and dissemination plan? Remember, we spoke about it, and some of you already had some objectives written out. What are the key messages coming out of your evaluation? As I said, in IDEV, this is the major outline. These are the key areas that we investigate or we prepare knowledge about. But from your own reports, you do have your structure, and you do know the kind of information that you draw, from which you will draw the key messages. And then we look at the target audience and the knowledge needs. So you have the key stakeholder, for example, you say the Minister of Health. So what would be their knowledge need from the evaluation that you have carried out? Would it be the recommendations that you've made, maybe some of the findings that you have made, maybe it depends on whatever report that you have prepared. So you would be able to have identified it from the evaluation that you have carried out, and so on. And like I said, by the end of your evaluation, you really know who are the core, what I would say, audiences to focus on. And you could still have some products that are prepared for a wider audience, which you can make available on your website, on your social media platforms, and so on. But then there are those that really need to be reached or through special interventions. Either you meet them, or you hold a workshop with them, or a briefing, or and because of that, a lot more effort is required, even in terms of the quality of the product that you share with them. So the proposed knowledge and communication activities and products, again, we've seen that. Some of you did come up with what you would do, so you already have an answer to that. And finally, we have our matrix, which some of us use as our planning framework. So all the things you've answered in here help fill in. But what you're doing more is now indicating the time frames, because remember, whatever product that you're sharing, it has to be timely. And so you need to indicate when it will be done or when it will be available, so that it is delivered to whoever needs it in a timely fashion. Of course, we have to indicate within ourselves whoever is responsible. And then the budget elements. Here, we don't write out the budget, but what are the things that will cost money? If you're going to do graphic design, if you're going to hold a workshop, you put them in here. Those are our budget elements. Okay, if it's just staff time, no problem. We'll still put it there, because staff time is still a budget element, but we don't put it in the final budget, of course. And then finally, how this will be evaluated. So in your budget, I think many of you have prepared budgets.
Jackie, sorry to cut you. Can you please show us the plan? Or is this, because I think what we're seeing now is just the link.
You're not seeing the plan. No, sorry, I was actually on the plan. Sorry, I didn't know you weren't seeing it. Let me close the presentation.
Okay.
Let me see if I can pick it. Sorry, I'm so sorry. I thought you were seeing it.
No worries.
My bad, sorry. Can you see it?
Yes, we see it now.
Okay. Oh, I'm so sorry. So I was just talking to myself. Yeah, so this is it. The answers that you had written, as I said, the introduction is about the evaluation, the M&E report that you're doing, basically about it, what it's about, what it's doing, and so on. But what I'm saying is that the answers that we were generating as I was speaking answer to this. The purpose of this communication and dissemination plan, you want to influence, you want to, all those things that we said. As I said, the key messages, as I said, it depends on the outputs of your evaluation. And I say that this is normally the findings, conclusions, lessons, and recommendations is really what we present from our evaluations, and there are key messages that are in there. And the target audiences, you had already mentioned them, and their knowledge needs. And these are derived again from either when you were carrying out, as I said, your evaluation, the people you spoke to and the kind of knowledge needs or what they were seeking, or also probably even within your management team, what they're seeking, or the collaborators that you're working for, or your development partners, what their knowledge needs are. And also sometimes based on the evaluation that you've done, you may find some very pertinent or critical information or message that needs to reach another stakeholder who probably didn't ask for it, but it's important that they get it to be able to improve whatever they are doing. The communication channels, we had already mentioned that mix of the things that you would do for that particular evaluation. And then all this is fielded into this matrix. So in the matrix, we already have answered the first 4 columns. You need to put a time frame to it so that it is timely. Whatever it is you're producing is timely. You need to indicate the person who is responsible. Cost elements, which you had, like, as I said, if it's a workshop, if it's if you want to get editing services, if you want to get graphic designers, this is where you place them. And finally, how you monitor that this evaluation, this product has been used. And finally, you estimate the budget. You use the cost elements that you put in there to actually estimate the budget using whichever means that you use. So I'll stop here. Sorry, the presentation has taken too long, but I hope you won't have too many questions because we were working as we were moving. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jacqueline. If you could just stop sharing. Colleagues, we will, just a reminder that the presentations and all other relevant content will be available on the Twendembele website, twendembele.org, and also on our YouTube page. And we will also get our colleagues from the DPME and all the relevant government departments to just forward you the links and publications that you will need for this. from this presentation. Thank you again. We will take questions now. Colleagues, if there are any hands, you're welcome to raise your hand or place your questions in the chat. I think for me, Jacqueline, if I may start while we wait for our colleagues to pose questions. My question is around how, because you and I obviously have you have a business background, I have a social science background, and how easy is this? Because the majority of our the participants right now are government staff. How easy is it for government staff to adopt such a plan and to add it to the work that they already do? Thank you. That is my questions. And we have questions from Siabonga. Well, two questions rather. So Jacqueline, I think I'll pose you the two questions, and then if you could just answer all three together. My questions and the two from Mr. Sibia. Okay, his first question is, one is where does the budget for comms usually come from? The evaluation budget or the intervention? And secondly, how is use systematically tracked? How is use systematically tracked? Those are the two questions from Mr. Sibia.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the first question is how easy is it for government officials to adopt the communication and dissemination plan? Now, if you look at the communication and dissemination plan, I think everybody can adapt to use it. The only question is, at the end of the day, what are you going to do? Do you know? Because like we say, at the end of the day, you're limited by the budget, because you can say, okay, this is the M&E report, and this is what is coming out. Now, you have an option of just giving it to your boss and putting it on the shelf. But if you're really passionate about making sure that your work does make a difference, you will try to make it, whatever results that are coming out, reach wherever it is intended to. So you're in government, let's say you're working for the Ministry of Agriculture. This is one, and you have gone out to monitor a project that the ministry is carrying out in a certain district. Now, based on what you get, you may write out all the evaluators that you have, all the stakeholders that you have. There are those whom you will use what I would say the standard dissemination pathways to reach them. One of them is, I do know most governments in Africa, at least the ministries, have a website, from what I have seen. And if they don't have a website, they do have a social media page. In fact, some of them have actually social media, they have Facebook, Twitter, and they'll also have a website. You know, so I think in these days, you have so many, what I would say, channels to use that are at your reach. So if you're an M&E officer sitting in the ministry, you do know that if you have a website or if you have a social media platform, there is somebody within your ministry that manages it. Maybe it's the communication department and so on. So just make sure you make friends with them. That's one on the side. Anyhow, but whatever report that you have, and you want to present it to many people in the ministry, you may have either within your department a mailing list that you can share your report, or you may present it on your website, or you may write out, like what I would say, because like I said, when you do your report, it's not everything that's relevant, but there could be key issues that are coming out that you can write about, and you can write about it and share it either as a small news article, blog, or something like that. So for government agencies, I think right now I would say work more towards using social media and the ministry website. Because if we go into things like publications and so on, that might be a bit tricky, because then that's where the costs come in. Does it answer your question, Parfait?
Absolutely. It absolutely does. Thank you.
Great. So then the second question was, where does the budget for comms come from? Now, for us here, because we're in the evaluation department, the budget for comms actually comes from our evaluation budget, because we're here. So if you're looking at a project, if it is from where I worked from in my previous place where I worked from, what they did is they made sure that about 20% of the project budget went into communication. Because if it was a project, one of the things that was supposed to, again, because if you want to actually get impact or to get your work being used, it has to be communicated, it has to be disseminated. So when we wrote out projects, there used to be 20% that was assigned to communication for whatever project that we did. Because if you now put communication in the docket of M&E, many times by the time M&E have spent on their transportation, their logistics, and so on and so forth, they many times don't have the budget for communication, because as you know, communication is also costly. So this is how we used to place it. But here in the bank, as I say, because we are an independent evaluation unit, then even the communication budget comes from us. So the third question was, how is use systematically tracked? I gave you the slide where we showed how we do it. The quantitative ones are the easiest, because you're able to go online and check out like how many people are retweeting our work, how many followers, how many impressions tweets are making, for example, how many people are accessing our website, how many people are downloading our reports. All those are easier to track. Now, when it then other ways that we track it, as we said, is like every, I think it's 2 years. Jane, correct me. When do we do the client survey, Jane? IDEV.
Okay, are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Good afternoon, participants. So with the client satisfaction survey, we haven't been systematic about that, but we are trying to reinstate that system whereby we'll be doing on annual basis. Because the last time actually that we did it, it was over like 4 years ago.
Yeah,
and this was to complement the independent peer review of the independent development evaluation function of the bank. But since then, yeah. But also just to complement that, depending on the dissemination activity that you undertake, for example, if it's a learning event, a workshop, at the end of those activities, we do have surveys. So with the analysis that is collected from that, we collect it, and, it feeds into how we shape future activities and products and so forth. Thank you.
And like I mentioned also, because many of our evaluations are supposed to influence the preparation of something here within the bank. So we also keep track of those new strategies that are coming on board that reference IDEV, that reference an IDEV evaluation. Like recently we had a new fragility strategy. It referenced our evaluation. It gained a lot from our evaluation, gender, and so on. So all these new strategies that are coming up, and they actually make reference to the IDEV's evaluation. So that's how we track what we're doing, that the evaluations are being used. So there's a question, I think. Yeah, I think my three questions.
Jackie, go ahead, Jane. Maybe just to add on that, in terms of how also internally the evaluations are also being tracked. We do have what we call the Management Action Record System,
yes,
MAS.
okay.
So here we're able to track to what extent actually the bank management has adapted their grade recommendations from the independent evaluations.
Yeah. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you. There are two more questions, Jackie, if you'll indulge us. The first is, what realistic communication channels are used to share evaluation reports to targeted beneficiaries? Often beneficiaries are targeted for data collection, etc. But when the final report is in, no visit back to the beneficiaries to share the findings. Note the digital divide in Africa, where not all of us have access to ICTs and extract of reports from websites. And obviously, from your experience, the bank obviously does a lot of, or you guys do a lot of evaluations in the different African countries. And I think that's an excellent question. And we have a question from Samu Kilisiwe, and it reads, is it important to identify potential decision points in the plan? That's from Samu Kilisiwe. And from Mercy, how easy is it to disseminate knowledge findings to beneficiaries, and how could it be possible? What approaches are relevant? And obviously, we can tie these questions to the questions by Ayabulela, and obviously some of the stuff that you've already touched on in your presentation. You go ahead, Jackie.
Okay. Okay, so the realistic communications to targeted beneficiaries. I do know it's really difficult for, especially when you look in Africa, if you're looking out, let's say up country, and you want to make sure that this information reaches the targeted audiences. If the evaluation, it is really important that the evaluation results reach them. You may need to, like for example, we do a lot of publications, the small like fact sheets and briefs and so on, which sometimes we will send to our country office somewhere to share, where we need that information to reach. And sometimes when our evaluators are going out, then they'll carry some of these products. This is for us here at the bank. But yes, it's true, being able to produce this and taking it back to the beneficiaries. If we are lucky and the beneficiary has an email address, when the evaluation is ready, because what we do is we do list down everybody that's interviewed. If they have an email address, when the evaluation is ready, then we will send them a link to evaluation and probably a small brief or something on the evaluation. So those are for those who are got electronic means. However, for those that don't have, most likely you can't reach all the beneficiaries, but if you're able to reach maybe a community leader, because there'll be some beneficiary who at least who maybe is reachable by some electronic form or other, whom you can send it to. So that is what I can say for now. I mean, if it is a government project and it's very important, you can combine your whatever findings you have with some other related process. Let me give an example. We had an evaluation that was to do with water, and one of the issues that came up, of course, it's normally water supply and sanitation, and there were issues to do with sanitation that even if water was supplied, the sanitation was not really good. It was not effective. I mean, like the people did not improve, like still the water was not, they were not taking really clean water. And it turned out that it was more of a behavioral aspect, nothing that if you're implementing this project, the bank project would help. And so in the next, one of the recommendations was to work with the health, I think it was like the health sector or the health ministry, to be able to now like reach get this information out back to the beneficiaries through their systems within that particular country. So this is where you may work with partners who are working in those areas to actually help get that information out, the intermediary organization, so you cannot actually do it directly. Okay, so I hope I have answered that question. Then there was a question on touch points, decision points in the plan. Yes, that's important. I came from research before I came here, and we had decision points when a research was going on, and we made sure that that was part, because part of the in the communication plans, you know, like for example, if you did the baseline study, it had to be shared and certain things had to be done. It was like those particular milestones that came up that needed, that some decisions or so on had to go on before you went to the next stage. And so we had to put it into the plan, you know, because remember, when you talk about decision points, I think decision points is based on the information or the outputs that you're generating. And this is why we spoke about communication taking place from the beginning of the evaluation to the end of the evaluation. And so, yes, in between as your evaluation is going on, at a decision point, you can share information. For us, we have like where the inception report has been carried out, it has to be shared with the what you call an evaluation reference group and the user department to review it. So at that point, that is part of that communication, that product, the inception report, has to be shared for comment, you know, so that has to be built into your communication plan. So I hope I've answered that question on building decision points into the communication plan. And then I think there was a third question. I think I've forgotten that third question. Sorry.
The third question simply asks, how easy is it to disseminate knowledge, findings to beneficiaries, and how could it be possible? What approaches are relevant?
Okay, I see Jane has said something in the comments that for some beneficiaries in Africa, the radio media is still very effective.
Absolutely.
You know, the FM and so on is still very effective.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people in South Africa will be familiar with Imbizos and community forums. Those are some of the tools or channels that can be used for the less fortunate or those that do not have access to electronic devices. Exactly.
And remember, because there might have to be translation involved. And so you may want to work with those different, as I say, intermediaries who can get the message out for you in the language that they understand.
Absolutely. Just to take a last question, Jacqueline,
Yes.
there's a question around communications is tough with a lot of barriers. What barriers can one look out for in communications? I guess this is to communicate more effectively. Maybe there are some limitations around, maybe budgets, maybe.
Yes, there could be limitations on budgets. There could be limitations even on language. We've just spoken about language. There could be limitations on how you can reach, because you can hear also another question that's coming up. How do you reach those stakeholders that you want to reach? Whether it is you're talking about some barriers, like you know that your report is very pertinent to the Minister of Energy, but you know that in your real life you will never be able to reach them. You know, so how do you overcome those barriers of even reaching those particular stakeholders that you want to address? There's also the issues. Of course, budget is always very big, because if you don't have budget for certain things, you cannot do. But I always tell people now with social media, we no longer have excuses to say we cannot communicate, because now someone with a basic phone has a good camera, can take photos at least. Someone can write an article and post it somewhere, you know. So I think right now we are no longer limited in terms of the channels. We do have some the media like Twitter. Twitter has become very powerful in getting messages out. I've seen TikTok with the young people is really like very influential right now, you know. So WhatsApp, you know. So I think that, because I do recall, like during COVID, a lot of the messages, although some of them were not very good, but there was a lot of messages were being shared via WhatsApp on what people should do and so on. All these were just going out via WhatsApp. So I would say that try and look for the opportunities around, because as we said, there's so many channels and so many pathways that you can use. The question is, which one is the most effective for you, which is the most strategic for you, which one is also accessible to you.
100%. Jane, I see your hand up. Was there?
No, just quickly to add, is usually in many situations is actually a mix. So where you have to employ a push and pull strategies. For example, you may have to send a WhatsApp text chat, which directs your audience to your website, or you may have to send an email. You know, you direct them to, you know, either the website or another product and so forth. So in many cases, actually, you have to use a mix of the you know, of the media or the channels or even the products themselves. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. No, thank you very much for that. We will end there. Jacqueline, thank you very much for indulging us in your presentation. It was very fruitful. And participants, thank you for all your questions, as this allows us to really break down this topic, and just to, you know, so that allows us to almost learn from one another as peers. And we really want to thank you for that. Thank you to our partners from the DPME for making this possible. Thank you to our partners also from IDEF in the African Development Bank for making this possible. And yeah, so products, again, the presentations, the slides, and the video will be sent out by our friends and colleagues from the relevant government departments. Thank you, colleagues. We'll see you again soon. The next brown paperback learning events will look at barazas from Uganda. This is a community-based forum or indigenous forum of monitoring from Uganda. It's really an exciting one. I know many countries have tried to adopt this form of monitoring and engagement within the country M&E systems, and we will have a presenter from Uganda who will touch on this topic, and yeah, just for us to almost understand the type of work and its importance. Thank you, colleagues. We will see you guys soon. Have a wonderful Thursday. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you and bye.